Oh no. Oh no. And yeah. Okay. It is. Greetings, trans fans. It is January 16th. There's a roofing job going on this next week, so I'm not going to be any filming until Thursday, at least Wednesday or Thursday. But before that, we have some news of the weird from the cast of that we released last night. Released the Transformers episode, the collection that was the next episode. It's first part of 4 parts, and there I showed you briefly a shot of 3 other parts that would be after those 4 parts. So we have those 4 parts. There's season 2, and then it's possible we could do the other 3 that are story collection stories from Powers and Lizard and Muth that we liked. And there's a gentleman in there that were just kind of didn't fit anywhere, but kind of go in a theme. Transformers: The Simulations was one of them, and we had to change the Borg to something else. It's the Liege Maximo, and I was yeah. So we could totally do the other 3. We don't have to. They're not pertinent to the other stories. But they're out there if we want to film them too. We make season 2 from 7 episodes. It would be 3 more, 10. Yeah, so if we want to. But yeah, it's because this season's early on this season, and we'll see. Could end with all Transformers MUSH magazine. Well, I mean there's no magazine. It's nothing for sale. But Transtech magazine only went up to 2004 and was canceled. So there really are only those aired ones. Although there is Neutral Alliance was actually a Rob Powers story that was in it, as well as the Simulations. So it'd be cool to have it appear again. Also, Rob Powers story. Yeah, you don't know him, but it would be cool to end the whole thing with a Rob Powers story and some of his other stories post Corrosion of War. It'd be kind of a neat bookend to the whole thing. Trans fans went on from there. Apparently, Paper Flowers was actually a little later. What's up? The version we filmed was the 2006 version. How do I know this? I found T.L. Aaron's website. Apparently, he's been writing fanfic for forever. He or she. Doesn't say. I think it's probably a he. And he's got a bunch of other stories on there. One of them deals with a space matrix virus. One of them deals with the Coruscant attack. A bunch of other sequels. We can't... it's made up... What the site is done, so you can read them, not download them. You can look at them, but not download them. So... but Paper Flowers was fine because it was on 2 other sites. So it's the lexicon version. That's fine. Yeah. As long as we don't make any money on it, that's fine. And it was funny. So yeah. And casting one of our cats in it as the cat. That did it. You know. Yeah. So there are 3 possible potential other episodes. That doesn't mean we should film them. It means we could film. It could end up just being one big one in a movie. We will see. We could film them. Yes. Yeah, T.L. Aarons has a bunch of fanfics. He has a full site here with a bunch of different shows, CSI, a bunch of other stuff, Transformers, and I think there's even a Star Trek one in here. It's fascinating, but needless to say, he's done sequels. He has the sequel to Paper Flowers is dark something now. If you want to read it, if you want to read his stuff, fanfiction.net. Go to fanfiction.net and look up T.L. Aarons. or his stuff, the original stuff. His actual rewrite in 2006 of Paper Flowers is actually longer and has more detail as to what we did in our spoofy version, a parody version. Yeah, so it's different. And I thought it was interesting to note that of all the other people, all the other characters mentioned, Powers and Douglas Muth have a site. T.L. Ahrens has a site. There's 3 of them, but all those interesting that a lot of those other ones didn't have a site. We technically don't have a site either. We had Google Plus site connected to the Transformer, the TransMush. Google Plus went away, and it went away with them. So that's why we don't have a site. Great. We could set up Kitty Key. We could ask Kitty Key. We could say to them, okay, we want to put up some of these stories in our archive somewhere at some point. But we haven't done that. And we don't know if he'll do that. But he has a channel, so we don't know if he'll do that. He might. Might put some of them up there. Maybe some of the changed ones, but certainly not the long, huge ones. No, not the movie ones from last season. They were whole movies. Yeah. Also, once they're up there, then they wouldn't be. They would be under any auspice of like reprinting something old without permission is kind of odd. You probably don't want to do that. It's fine as fanfic movies because you're adapting material and giving them a byline. This one of which gets stark card-like bylines to each one as each short story unfolds, which is kind of cool. In this latest round, the first 3 were Beast Wars stories, and then took off to the planet to do the other stories. And what did I think of the exciting episode that we just shot 70 minutes of? It was fun. It was a quick sit, as it said in the comments. Aaron's story was only part of it for about maybe the last 20 minutes or so. It wasn't that long. Just the last 20 minutes of an episode. It fit with his dialogue and the information completely. It just fit there. It's like, okay, what were these characters doing? As for the Quintessence story that he's got up here, it doesn't fit with anything. So even if we wanted to download it, and say, oh, this is cool, it's 2006. It's after. It'd be a little weird. It was right on the edge. The original Paper Flowers was right on the edge of being like. Probably shouldn't have used it, but we did. It was all in fun. It's as this website says, it's not for profit too. Neither is the YouTube channel. We're not going to monetize anything. Obviously, it's Transformers. You can't monetize parodies. That would be against their guidelines. So, and our stuff is not flagged by either side of any political party because, well, we're not doing anything political on them. They're Transformers. They're going at it as robots. There's hardly anything to do with anything. Think about it. Rice got a lot of stuff on here. There are a lot of Transformer stories in here. Here is Paper Flowers. Let's look at his re-upload of Paper Flowers. He gives a copyright. He or she, I think it's a he. He copyright, but it's Hasbro. Hasbro copy. You don't need to do that in your fanfic because they know. I mean, you can say, okay, disclaimer, they own the characters, but really, it's a fanfic. Hasbro's not going to care. They're going to, as long as you're not selling anything. Let's see, we have data points, 4 reviews for it, 1 follower. It was originally published in August 2006. Yeah, this version. It was about Rusty in this version. We changed the character to Dana because that would be funny. And then it proceeded to figure out her age to see how old she would actually be. Well, if she was born at the same time Dana was in the other timeline, then she was 2 roughly by 2012. And so she would now be No, older than that. 8 years older than that. She should be 10. Yeah, why would she be taking a nap at only 10? But, oh well. Anyway, but there's another oddity in Robotech in that Scott Bernard and Lancer are roughly supposed to be the same age, and yet Lancer should have been born in 2020. So, but Scott Bernard is like later, and he only remembers being on a ship, and that's it, in Robotech ship. Scott Bernard would have been about 2 years old when the SDF-3 launched for the Sentinels. So he would have been around, maybe a little older than Lancer, but only a little bit older than Lancer. Yeah, so he would be, yeah, they say 2024, but that's wrong. They say earlier than that, 2018, but that's probably closer to what it is. So he'd be 2 or 3, which makes him roughly the age to be a lieutenant in that other story, in the New Generation, set 20 years after that, roughly. Or what screws it up is the Tommy Union stories took place in 2044, and it should have been 2041, but and then they screwed it up even more when they made the other one, and they yeah, so they screwed it up. Rick Hunter marries Lisa Hayes at some point. Oh yeah, and in this universe, Robotech would be completely different. No Zentradi War, no Masters, no invasion. They invaded earlier, or stopped. The Transformers were around, so they stopped it. So if you did a Sentinels type of thing with a story, completely original, which would be freaky if we did a completely original one, yeah, it would be, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. You can go to the Sentinel planets if they want, or something, on the ship. The SDF ship would be launched. It would be probably like the Mega Road version, with millions of people on board. You know, it would do that. It would be closer to Macross Plus and 7 than it would be to Robotech, just because, yeah, they just retconned it. And it would be 2022 or so. We launch the Sentinels. We're not saying we're going to do that. I'm just saying if you wanted to, it'd be a completely clean slate and you can do whatever you want. Anyway, so yeah, so there's a mutual alliance. The Leisure Maximum returns. Yeah, we didn't want to do I wanted to do the Transformers Meet the Borg one, because it was Lizard, but also because Lizard, but I didn't want to make them the Borg because that was dumb. So I just renamed them the Liege, because all they really do in the story is they say we're menacing and evil. We're going to assimilate you. Kind of like the Borg. Sorry, Borg.
Are you in the mood for?
Well, there's no Star Trek tonight, so yes. Yes, so this is a quick FYI on the Trans Tech thing that we chose another 2 episodes to do last for the season finale of the whole thing, the Transformers thing. That we chose to do hard reboots of, well, we're gonna because no one will ever air the original Trans. There is about 2 stories worth of 2 episodes worth of the original Trans, so why not do a hard reboot of that? It's not going to be Trans Tech because we've already done that. It's not going to be Space Bridge, we've already done that. So the end of it'll tie into this whole season. So yes, that's next. So there will be Kal Kat stories. That will be the last 2 episodes of this season of Transformers. MUSH, all Transformers MUSH. And now we're going to skip to the next thing real quick. So that's, yeah. It is the 19th of January. And this story will be set about a month from now. Really moments after the last story. So it'll be just after, it'll be at like this, roughly the 15th of February, the story. So it's literally the next day. Lead into the Slag Maker and the other stories in the Megatronus episodes. And this is the Slag Maker, Rich Paulish, P-A-W-I-L-S-H. Don't know anything about him.
but his first short story is the first short story here, and this will be called Legacy of the Scythe. It's the second episode of the Scythe saga. There are 4 of them in the Scythe saga, and then there are 4 more after that, 4 other additional episodes. So I think there's 4 more after that. There's 8. Yeah, so this is episode 5. That'll conclude with 12, something like that. Something like that, yeah, because there's 2 of the other, and then there's... Yeah. So, in any case, this is the very next episode. It literally leaves off where the other left off, so let's do the teaser trailer right now. Yeah, Kal Kat the Calcaster. Real brief making of, since there is no making of in here yet. This was the conclusion of Rich Polish's script. Well, teleplay scene. These are all short stories in this one. They're really short. This one is the Slag Maker. And, he thought it was funny because he's British, so he's like slag, slag, which they did need to change later. Slag the Dinobot. They Hasbro changed it to Slog. It sounds dirtier, actually. They should have just left it slag. They know what slag is. Here it just means metal, like, stuff. Anyway, and also, I want to brief mention that around April or so this year, they're going to be releasing a Studio Series Grimlock. They've released a Scourge and a Rodimus, or a Hot Rod. They're going to release Rodimus later. And the Studio Series Grimlock is a little shorter than the Masterpiece one, and a little bigger than the Prime's one. It's about the size of the Beast Wars Megatron, and he looks the right scale to the Siege characters. So that's exciting. Unfortunately, it'll be coming out about a month after the series wraps production. But we'll have a Grimlock that's actually the right size. Well, yeah, there's... Yeah, oh well. Anyway, so yeah. So we're going to go on to the next one, which I believe is another short story. And we didn't use most of his dialogue because it didn't really fit, and we kind of added a little bit of the... we added a little bit of our own just to bring it a little more... like a story. It's basically just a treatment. It's an idea. It's an 11-page idea. It was all blocky text, hard to read, and I liked some of what the idea premised, but there was nothing more. We didn't do anything else, so we put a bunch of other stories after it to fill in that were similar in tone, to fill in the story and take us into the next story. And yeah, so we're gonna go on to the next one. I'm not going to ramble on in the making of this because it's a bunch of short stories together. Boy, it's just a bunch of short stories. Let's go. Okay, this is Rob Jung's story. This is making of, I guess, briefly. He's got a short story here called Cause of Madness, followed by a slightly longer short story called Electric Escape or Legacy. And it deals with Galvatron, but this is the other Galvatron. So, this is another part of the planet, and we're going to start rolling. Yeah. Rob Jung, Douglas Muth collected it. That's Rob Jung. Okay. And allegedly, according to Muth, it's the same dude. So, anyway, so yeah. Here we go. This camera card. Testing camera card. Testing camera card. It looks like... Testing camera card. Oh boy. Looks like it's working. There's a cat. Testing camera card. Okay, I'm going to stop it. No. No. No kitty. No. Testing, and we are recording, and it is a little later. It is the 24th. Yeah, testing and recording. Okay, this is the making of. It's not Skylinks that goes down into the chamber with him, because how would he fit? It's Jetfire. That's the only thing I've got for that. So, Jetfire. So there isn't much making of footage, believe it or not, this time around. This was the end of the Rob Jung story, Elegy or Escape. And we're going to go right on to the next one. The next one is shorter. So, yeah, there's not much here. The other camera card died. The card, not the camera. So the numbers are a little weird, which you won't notice. And we were able to recover all the footage because the footage was recoverable off the computer. Anyway, so there isn't anything lost. The end of this story was changed. In the original story, Cup shows up. There's a discussion on whether Primus was actually deceiving them. There's a lot of stuff that Rob Jung thought would be kind of clever and hubrisy and kind of thing. I essentially wove that into the scene instead and made it a little more ambiguous. That's what he was getting at. I'm pretty sure. So it's going to work. We're going to go on to the rest of that other story. And also the idea of the Optimus Prime and Megatron having suddenly the power of Vector Sigma to like animate life. That was one of his ideas. It's like, no, they don't really do that. They kind of did that on the show a little bit because they made the Dinobots without going to Cybertron. Because that was earlier on in the series, like the 5th episode, and I figured they didn't know how they do it. So they just said, we built them and made them Dinobots. Also, the Constructicons were either from Cybertron before and they helped build Megatron, or which was a later episode than a previous episode where they said Megatron built the Constructicons in a cave. So there's like different origins for things. Omega Supreme had 2 different origins. One, the Constructicon zapped his powers and he was actually a Guardian and all that. And the other one where he's sort of created later and then put back together in other episodes. The aerial bots and the time travel and the War Dawn and all that and the other stuff. Which were not connected necessarily to Omega Supreme, but him being rebuilt. There's a lot of retcons of their own stuff during the show. Galvatron's origin, though, was not retconned. Vector Sigma, the Combaticons were also created just from getting personality components from Cybertron. No Vector Sigma, and putting them in new robots that Starscream. So there's like totally inconsistent with their origin story and the other stuff. And I think a lot of the G1 fans here, probably a little younger than me, but not by much, at the time, were like, we just want to retcon the whole Quintesson thing and say like they were created by Primus earlier. Primus and the other stuff comes later. That stuff was from the comics and the UK comics and all that, and that was put in later. So that's another retcon origin. It's not really vastly important. I don't want to ramble on about it, but they're Primus and Unicron are said to be the planets. In later versions of it, Unicron is in the Earth. In Transformers Prime, that's mainly in the Bay timeline and the Prime timeline. Not the G1 Prime timeline, but rather Transformers Prime timeline. We thought that was kind of stupid, because why would Unicron be in the Earth or be the Earth? It was also put in a Michael Bay movie. But it was the same people that did Transformers Prime. No, it's a seed of evil that's on the Earth. It's hidden. It's better if it's a spaceship or a seed or Dark Energon, because then it's like, okay, it's not the whole planet. It's just this. The Unicron went there a long time ago and left. And the whole Gaiken creating Unicron and Tornadon doesn't make sense. I like that he kind of retcons that. But we already did that in a previous episode and said that Gaiken didn't do it. So that was another Rob Jung. I think that was another hint of another Rob Jung story. At least it was a Doug Muth story. And they're related, if not the same guy. So, there was another story where we addressed that already and said it again during the Beast Wars story. So this is kind of continuity with the Beast Wars stuff that we already did and what other people did. So the continuity is blurred. It's still blurred. We didn't change that. So going on to the next one. And the next one is Rob Powers, I believe. We're going to do him again. Testing camera card. Testing camera card. Testing new camera card on this one. A few seconds of it. It's very similar to the other one. Looks like, yeah, it looks like it's good. Okay, I'm going to pause it. So, yes. A full day of filming. A full day. Yes. Kal Kat the Cowcaster. And we were able to complete this episode. Now, there may be some pickups. We'll see. We'll see how long this is and where the pickups would be. I don't think so, though. Well, we'll see, because sometimes there are. We'll block the story and then see what's... nothing, there aren't really any errors and missing parts and stuff. This was the final story of the 4 in the story. It was about 30 pages, and it was called Rob Powers' Pile of Transformers. Peaceful Warfare was the name of this one. And this was the 4th and final story. Peaceful Warfare was basically a sequel to a G1 episode, Heavy Metal War. But there already was one, but he wrote his own. This is also very similar to an episode where they invade they go into the Decepticon base. The ending part where they go in the base is identical to an actual episode. So I didn't film that. I changed that scene. Because there was an episode of Transformers where they did that. They broke into Decepticon headquarters because he was like, Megatron was trying to be peaceful or something. So that was very similar. So what I did with this one is I had the other Megatron and Galvatron set up as the story starts out. At the end of the last one we had Galvatron injured, or I guess the one before it was somewhere in there he's injured, and at this point the part where they're damaged during Heavy Metal War and they're put in the lava, which would have destroyed them, but it didn't because it was a cartoon. Instead of that, it was Galvatron, and he was channeling with Megatron. Because they're robots and they have communication devices. It's probably not psychic power. They have radio, and he just contacted him. Yeah, they have computer brains. Yeah, it's not psychic or anything like that. It's just that they can do that. Yeah, they're robots. Yeah, it's nothing like that. So we have. Fairly decent, easy to film script in a day, certainly. It was more about Bumblebee in the original. But Bumblebee hasn't really been in this episode, so we made it either Hot Rod or Kitty Key or one of the other ones. We got to see Spike and Carly. We got to see Spike is being as Wolfbane from Transformers Cyberverse. And as RC is Carly is RC from Cyberverse. They're very hollow on the other side of their legs, so they don't like the Slipstream and the Insecticon jets. They don't really have anything. They're very G1-y, like clunky. But we didn't want to actually use G1 toys in this because it would have been weird. Yeah, so this was the end of the thing. We got to 20 pages, only to realize we have another 10. But it really went quickly because Rob Powers, in case you didn't know Rob Powers, we did another short story of his, but actually the pilot of all of this was Rob Powers. Corrosion War Without End was Rob Powers. And of course we had to have Draconis in there, even though he wasn't in the story originally, because yeah, he's a Rob Powers character. But in the Rob Powers universe, he's called Lexius. He's a jet. He looks more like Silverbolt, but red. Kind of like Scattershot and Silverbolt, kind of somewhere in between. But I decided Draconis Prime was cooler. Also, we had his friend, his buddy in there, Alexius's buddy. It's either Dark Mount or it wasn't Battleship in his version. It was something else. but yeah, he's basically half the Decepticon. So anyway, there you go.
This is making of, more on the legacy of the Scythe. Be sure to include in the making of this, and also the end, and also this making of, and also the 2 scenes from the beginning of the file related to how they wanted to go on and do some more episodes. Include that in the beginning, and the thing with with T.L. Ahrens, where they discovered that Jason Ahrens is still around. So it's a guy. Anyway, so and that he doesn't. His blog is set up so that you can read but not download anything. Just read it, which is fine. However, his older stuff you can look at over at Lexicon. If you want to look at it, do whatever. But you can't really download that either. That's locked too. So yeah, you can't download. You can look at it and read like summaries and stuff. This I'm rendering the last bit, the fourth bit of this. There's 4 episodes. The first 2 are about 7 minutes long, so there's like, and there's in the story. The last 2 segments are the last 2 episodes, basically, and they are about 10 to 15 minutes long. So it's not quite an hour. Also, there are a few production things that we're going to fix right now. Then you're going to see the whole thing making of and whatever, and have it done. So we are doing pickup scenes. It is 7 o'clock on January 26th, Tuesday, and we are not behind schedule. It's scheduled to come out on the 28th. So if it comes out late tonight, that's fine. I would like to do the pickup scenes. They involve the transitions between different events that are happening, or at least they're not filler. They're meant to be there because there's parts between each episode and between each ransack or whatever battle thing that kind of needs, similar to back last season with some of the other transition stories, kind of needed a little bit of help to make the story make sense. There was a little bit of a curiosity on a blog. I was watching a blog by the Stone Gremlins doing a movie reviews of their top worst movies of the year, saying that they didn't like talkie movies where they're in a to talk. They're being sarcastic because the whole thing is them talking, not showing any footage. Completely tell, don't show. I've been over the show don't tell thing before, and there have been some minor criticism as to why doesn't why don't they show like transformations and them actually physically fighting and stuff. They're plastic. We can't do stop motion, so no transformations, because it would take probably days to do an Autobot transforming or a Decepticon transforming. They're not going to be flying through the air either, because we'd have to put them on a string or hold them in the air. It would look really bad. So, going for the soap opera type, spoof type fan fiction film where there's a lot of dialogue in the room. It still means things are happening, things are going on, but make sure those things that are going on are interesting. That's the gist. Make sure they're interesting. Because if it's an animated story, it's show and tell. So it's action figures on a play set. There's only so much you can do. You're limited to what you can do. The Starcrackers thing, you watch that and go, oh, we did that. It was amazing. That took 13 years. The last part of that was like 20 minutes was actually staged like a Transformers thing where they weren't moving that much. We just moved things around them and stuff. That's how we were able to finish it. But it would have still been in production if we hadn't finished that. So it's different. It's much different than that. Trans Tech, the miniseries, took 13 years. These stories are taking 2 years because, well, 1 year, year and a half, because almost a year coming up, because we said, let's just shoot the characters doing their things on the sets. And now I've seen some excellent stop-motion fan films, and the only critique of 1 or 2 of these is the same critique as before. If you're gonna go through the stop-motion and spend 6 months doing a stop-motion battle between the Autobots and Decepticons for 5 minutes, paint the set. That's the only thing. The rest of that was cool. There was this one where the Autobots and Decepticons fight, and we get to see some of the what's that guy? The Decepticon version of Wheeljack, Decepticon version of Trax, and they come back. It's somebody's fan film. Cool, except that the backgrounds weren't painted. No, we painted the backgrounds in this one. It's very similar to a G1 Transtech. But yes, but obviously not. Also, there was a reason in the earlier Beast stories that we had a nod to the Amazon movie, the Wonder Woman movie. It wasn't just the movie. It's that the plot of the story was they were going to find this essentially wishing thing. So they were basically on the same page. So we're making fun of that being on the same page. So it actually matches with what's going on here. So the spoof is that it's the story within a story. They watched a bad play, and now they're going from there. Very Shakespearean. But they watched a bad play, like the in the middle of the Midsummer Night's Dream is Theremus and Pisby. Anyway, so it's kind of like that. But here, it's not a dream. But here, looking back on this story, editing it together, the problem is we need to show the beast and end the story of the Scythe, and then do the next episodes that have nothing to do with it. So this one, we have to show the monster and end the story. It doesn't have an ending. It also needs some of those little break things in there. Just so happens there's a few of those little sprinklings throughout the story of the T.L. Aaron's stories, sprinkled throughout sequels, implications. There's a Quintesson implication. There's another one there. Megatron going off to find his buddy's implication. There's a few scenes in there. What we did is we took from the Mush stories that were similar in theme and said, okay, well, there's a better version of the Quintesson story in here. Here's the one we used. Yeah, it's not yours, it's the other one that you probably knew back then. But we used theirs because theirs was better. We used a better Vector Sigma trick one than that one. Just a slightly different story. We took a different take on it. So let's do it.
Brief pickup scene making of. Just completed. There's another windstorm. Just completed that scene there, and added to the end of the whole thing. I think I'll just put all these pickup scenes into one file, and then you can just sprinkle them throughout the 4 that are done. And that was this. And an ending. It turns out that the Scythe of Destiny legacy story is this one, and there is not another Scythe of Destiny story. Well, until we put the Leech Maximal. But but that character is kind of blocky and clunky. He's not really that cool, but he looks cool standing there, kind of like as a statue and then as a dragon. And he's not Dragon Megs. He's sort of what Dragon Megs kind of was thinking of, back to Megatronus, and to tie into Straxus and the others. So we get to see Straxus. So it is Rob Jungle, but it's like from circuitously. And also, it's a little bit of the T.L. Aaron short stories that followed that other story. Peppered in there throughout. What I did with these pickup scenes is they're similar to some of T.L. Aaron's short stories. So a little bit of, not enough of it to say that it is those short stories, but inspired by. So yeah. So anyway, so yeah, here we are. Yeah. That's it. That's it for this one. There are 7 more episodes. We are at the halfway point. Yeah. So,